2023 had one headline dominating the NBA world: Victor Wembanyama's debuted. Every conversation, every sports show, every tweet seemed to circle back to him. Fans couldn't wait to see the 7 feet 4 inches Phenom, a player hyped as Kevin Durant on offense and Rudy Gobert on defense. The buzz was electric. And when the hype is that high, the doubters always show up. Some weren't even true haters, and just people wanting to go against the grain. But the truth was, Wemby's talent was so rare it was hard to find real flaws. Sure, he wasn't perfect, but there wasn't a single part of his game you could call bad. So when it came to picking apart Wemby, there was really only one thing left to criticize: his frame. He's too skinny, too thin. He'll never dominate in the NBA. How's he gonna hold up against Jokic or Embiid? That was the narrative for months, even after Wemby lit up Scoot Henderson and the G League Ignite in late 2022. People kept saying the NBA's physicality would be too much for him. If you turned on the TV or the radio, the chorus was the same: yeah, he's good, but he needs more muscle now. This isn't to say everyone had to be 100% sold on Wembanyama or that he was flawless. In fact, his rookie year has shown some weaknesses, but here's the irony: none of them have anything to do with his size. If you actually watched him before the NBA, it was obvious Wemby's real issue wasn't his frame, it was his shot selection. And he was also turnover prone. That part was obvious. You didn't need to watch every single game to notice it. So yeah, it was strange hearing almost no one talk about that, but hearing non-stop chatter about him being too skinny. Maybe it's because most of them had never actually watched him play. Actually, we don't even have to guess. Stephen A. Smith answered that one. Did he hear it? Stephen A. Smith, one of the loudest, most influential voices in NBA media, talked about Victor Wembanyama every single week, sometimes every single day, throughout the entire 2022 to 2023 season, and then casually admits he's never actually watched him play. Every opinion he'd been throwing out about this kid, purely based on highlight clips. And here's the kicker: an NBA literally bought the rights to stream Wemby's games on their own app. Anyone in the US could have watched him live with zero effort. There's just no excuse. But let's be honest, Stephen A. isn't alone here. Most NBA analysts probably never saw a full Wemby game before he hit the league. In that situation, they can't offer any real breakdowns of his game, good or bad, because they have nothing to go on. So what do? They latch onto what's easy. They repeat the same surface-level talking points they've heard elsewhere. And the easiest one to run with: criticizing his frame. And that's the thing, criticizing his frame is easy. You don't have to watch a single one of his games in France to do it. It's the lowest effort take possible, which is exactly why so many people latch onto it. Honestly, it's the perfect example of a certain American basketball egocentrism, where anything outside the US barely exists on the radar. And look, if you genuinely don't care about overseas basketball, fine, that's your choice. But not caring and then acting like you're an expert, that's the problem. Do you think Stephen A. Smith knows if Wemby struggled in the French league because of his size? Of course not. Even if he did, most analysts would just dismiss it anyway. Sure, maybe he dominated in France, but that's the French league. That's not a real test for them. The real test is always college basketball, the land of true physicality. If you haven't been battle-tested there, most American analysts won't believe you're ready for the NBA, no matter what you've done overseas. Even if you're literally Victor Wembanyama, one of the greatest prospects basketball has ever seen, this mindset still doesn't make sense. Yes, the French league isn't the NBA. Nobody's claiming that, but it's still one of the top professional leagues in the world. If we're talking about competition level, let's remember Giannis was playing in the second division of the Greek league before he came to the NBA. That's when it's fair to question the talent he faced. Wemby, he was battling grown men as a teenager and dominating them outrageously. Why would playing against college kids, most of whom will never sniff the NBA, be considered a tougher challenge than facing pros who've been earning a living in the sport for years? In his final year in France, Wemby didn't just hold his own, he led his team all the way to the French playoff finals against Monaco, one of Europe's elite clubs. That Monaco roster, packed with 7 former NBA players, and Wemby still shined. If Wembanyama's frame wasn't holding him back in France, why do these people still act like he wasn't tested enough? Honestly, the logic should be flipped. If a so-called skinny teenager is dominating grown men and seasoned veterans, That's the last thing I'd be worried about, in fact. All this talk about him being too thin or trying to downplay his overseas accomplishments says a lot about some Americans' lingering feelings toward the international players. Sure, it's not as bad as it used to be, especially now that foreign stars are taking over the NBA, but you can tell it doesn't sit well with certain people. They'd much rather see the league ruled by Americans like it had been for decades, so when a generational prospect comes from outside the US, they pounce on any excuse to take a shot. And here's the real test for that mindset. Ask yourself one simple question, and the answer will be painfully obvious. Now, imagine this, a player with the exact same frame, body, and skill set as Victor Wembanyama right before he entered the league. Everything identical, except he's American, not French. And he played college basketball instead of going pro in France. Do you really think the conversation would be dominated by he's too skinny debates? Or would the headlines be all about the historic things he's doing? We both know the answer. And the hypocrisy gets even clearer when you remember Kevin Durant, one of the very players Wemby modeled his game after. KD entered the league rail thin and heard the same criticisms about his frame. Sure, he added a bit of muscle over time, but not enough to change his playing style. And he still had a spectacular rookie season while being, by NBA standards, really thin.